Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for that very warm welcome. Before I start, I want to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry to you, and I'm sorry to all EU citizens in the UK who are suffering. I'm sorry as a British citizen for what you are going through. I also want to say to the organisers of today, well done, this is extraordinary. Well done for having the energy for standing up and putting this together. I mean, the program today was absolutely brilliant. Do not stop. As I said, today was a packed agenda, and I'm sure it has resulted in a wave of very many different emotions from both the participants and the audience. Anger, bewilderment, anxiety, even despair, and perhaps a slight note of relief, depending on how you take the announcement of Davis's and Barnier's announcement today. To my view, there is no relief, it's just kicking the can down the road. But I believe in the human spirit, and I believe in optimism and hopefulness. I hope that divisions and the distrust being built in Britain can be arrested and reversed. That is why we are all here in this room. Because there is more that keeps us together than divides us. A desire for a brighter future for our children, for ourselves, for our country, to fight against extremism and terrorism, racism, xenophobia. We all want to quash those parasites in our society. Stigmatizing people must not happen because of the sinister consequences that comes from that. We have seen it time and again throughout history. We must not be silent while prejudice is now worn as a badge on a sleeve of honor as people walk through the streets of Britain. This is not nationalism. This is hatred. Being British first does not mean everyone else is second or third. It does not mean that we have to give up on who we are. It is not an either-or choice, fellow Brits. It is British and a citizen of the world, not British because we cannot be a citizen of the world. Standing side by side makes us stronger, safer, smarter. It's just common sense. British people must not allow EU citizens, in fact, any foreigner, to become socially devalued. Being publicly hostile is not something any one of us should want to see. And what about our shameful media and politicians? Where are their apologies? Where is their humanity? Where is their moral compass? The silence has gone on for far too long. It is not everybody who voted Leave that voted against other people. It was a small minority, but their voices must not become the majority. People must not be told, speak English. I must not walk into a florist and be approached by a wonderful French lady who said to me, "Thank you, but goodbye. I'm leaving in July," because as a stay-at-home mum, I have been told I'm a low-skilled worker. My husband can stay, my 12-year-old son can stay, but I cannot. Or the letter I got from Bristol, from a German mother who's been here 37 years, whose son is a Paralympian, who has actually won several medals for the UK, who, while speaking to her son, was spat at, he was kicked to the ground. Or the young couple who sent me a letter from Leicester, a Polish couple, and the lines read, "We were standing at the bus stop, speaking in our native tongue, in the country we call home. But then we were kicked to the ground, and they kicked my tummy and said, 'No more of you bastards here,' and I lost my 7-month twins." This is not the Britain anyone should be proud of. This is why we must all fight. We must all speak up. And what can we do practically? Because there are practical things we can do. And to my mind, there are three. The first is the local elections. Your voices can be heard. The million of EU citizens who can vote must vote. The dates are important. The 17th of April, you must register to vote if you can by that date. The 18th of April, if you will not be in the country on the 3rd of May, you can register for your postal vote. And then the 25th of April, you can also register for a proxy vote. But you must make your voices heard. But not only your own voices, speak to your friends and your neighbours and encourage them too to send letters, to write to local councillors, to local MPs and demand answers. Why is this inhumanity happening? Why are we becoming this country where no one speaks up for what is right? Ask them, demand that they answer your questions. And thirdly, I'm afraid we need to get out of London. You need to speak to anybody you know outside London, because you cannot take it for granted that the messages from London are echoing around the country. They are not. I go around the country, they are not. We cannot be complacent in London. We must reach out. We must go the extra mile. We must walk the extra mile. We must educate. We must explain that we are actually all the same. We are not different. We all love Britain. It is our home. But we need to be part of something bigger. In a world that's moved on, we cannot go backwards. This is about our futures, our voices, and every single one of us has a responsibility to speak out and use it. Thank you. Rather than speaking at you, I thought I might speak with you now. So if anybody has any questions, I'm very willing to hear, discuss, hear your voice.
Thank you very much for this very encouraging speech. My name is Bruno de Florence. I'm French. I've been here for over 30 years. I'm now very proud to say that I have been selected to stand for the council elections in Earl's Court in London.
Well done.
In our Labour manifesto, we have a very, very strong commitment to protecting the local rights of all EU citizens. And if necessary, we will go as a Labour administration to court and take on the government on behalf of all EU citizens. Thank you.
On that point, I'm sure most of you in this room know, or maybe some of you don't, but there is actually a very interesting case that has been given permission to go to the ECJ. It was lodged in Holland, and it says that your rights as an EU citizen to live in the UK or to be freedom of movement does not hinge on membership of the EU. Many of us thought that the case wouldn't be given permission. It has been. It is going to the ECJ. And I think everybody needs to keep an eye on that case and make sure that they get your support. It is very important that that is not allowed to die quietly in some little paragraph on page 16 in any media newspaper. It needs to be talked about over and over again. Let them know that this case is coming and how important it will be.
Hi, Gina. My name is David Randall from Southwest London for Europe. My question is this. Do you think that there is a platform, or could we create a platform upon which we as pro-Europeans from across Europe could declare our adhesion, our fellowship, one with the other? Because there is a sort of divide and rule dynamic in the sense that you have You have, I guess, you have Brits. You have Brits abroad. You have the 3 million in the UK, and these are sort of disparate groups. Whereas in a world where, in the future, we might be somehow joined together by some form of European passport, that wouldn't be the case. But that European passport does not exist by treaty at the moment. But that doesn't stop us on a voluntary basis declaring our fellowship one with the other. So is it not possible to create some sort of platform upon which we can do that? Some kind of, I don't know, certificate of adhesion or something like that, or an associate status of the EU, which we ourselves are declaring, because in a sense, it's our right. The EU is our legacy. It's the peace accord that emerged out of World War II. So perhaps member states should not have the right to take that away from us. We can surely do something about that.
It's an interesting idea. There is actually someone talking about this. He's a mini Nobel Prize winner. It's called the Good Country Project. And it's worth looking into from that very perspective, is that it's creating almost a country without borders. And it is about a country that its cohesion is around its principles rather than its physical manifestations. So I'd maybe look at that, Good Country, and see if there's anything you can take from that. That project actually came out from wanting peace around the world. But I can't see why those principles can't be applied to what you're talking about. So just a practical solution.
Hi, Gina. It's Nicholas from the 3 Million. I'm so admirative of what you've done, because a lot of Europeans that came to this country, they got this utter respect of the rule of law, and Britain represented that for so many EU citizens who came from dictatorship from when they were young. So my question is as follows. If we don't get what we want, and we feel that the future status of EU citizens will not actually match what we've had before, and we can estimate that there's a case, a legal case, do you think that, would you support that in the way you managed successfully to raise that in terms of Article 50?
I think there's quite a lot of talk, on this point. And the problem we have is the domestic law versus European law. And if we leave with no deal, and we are not under the auspices of the ECJ, that would be quite difficult to do. You could only do it through the Court of Human Rights, which we'd still be members of. So there is talk, and there are a group of lawyers actually looking at that. But just to give you, again, when I talk about hope and optimism, there's quite a lot to happen before then. I think that what today spells out more than anything is that the reality is starting to dawn, that what the fantasy Brexiteers thought were possible is not going to be possible. And we haven't, what was really interesting from a legal point of view is that the Irish part of the protocol on Ireland that was supposed to be in this week's negotiation isn't there. It was in the draft. It's not in this week's what's been published so far. That will be now kicked to April. I can't see how they're going to actually square that circle on Ireland. If they try to, and it contravenes the Good Friday Agreement, I think we have a case on the back of my judgment. If they do not give a proper free vote or a meaningful vote that leads to an act of parliament in autumn, we feel we have a case on the back of my judgment. If they do not allow a referendum possibly on the treaty changes, if the 2011 Act, which is in the withdrawal bill, now sitting in the House of Lords, just to explain that a bit further, there was an act, an act passed in 2011, which said whenever there is a treaty change, there has to be a referendum. Us leaving the EU would be a treaty change. Now, the government knew about that, so they put it in the withdrawal bill. And the lazy MPs never spotted it. So they passed it. So now they want to score their homework again. They're going, oh my goodness, we didn't notice that. So they're relying on the House of Lords getting it done, their homework done. Well, actually, Lord Adonis has laid down an amendment saying that that is such an important act, not just for Brexit, but for us as a nation, that it should not be in the withdrawal bill. If the House of Lords is successful on that and pings it back to the House of Commons, and enough MPs back that, maybe they're slowly getting their backbone, that will be back, that will be there, and will require a referendum, because leaving the EU in any form, soft, hard, slow, whatever it is going to require a referendum. So there are still legal mechanisms where the rule of the law will not allow this country to trample on people, will not allow the executive to bypass Parliament, and will not allow their illiberal agenda to trump the rule of law. Thank you.